Of all the podcasts in all the pod players in all the internet, she listens to mine.
Does that sound familiar? It's an adaptation of a famous quote from the film Casablanca, starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. Here's the actual quote. Craig, take it away.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
So, we're going to the movies this week and sharing with you some of our favorite classic quotes and the films they come from. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig. Hello, my name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us, Reza and I are going to help you improve your English and take your grammar, your vocabulary, your pronunciation, every aspect up to the next level. How are you doing, Reza?
I'm doing well, Craig. I'm really looking forward to this episode. How about you?
Yeah, me too. It should be fun because we both love movies. And I think we both like old movies sometimes, the classic old movies. So this should be a lot of fun and we hope you will enjoy it too. But before we speak about movies, we have an audio message from Patricia from Pamplona, who has passed the C1 Advanced English exam.
Hi Greg, hi Reza. This is Patricia from Pamplona again. How are you? I hope both of you are fine. I sent you a voice message back in February or March, but you put it the day of my birthday, 31st of March, so it was a very good gift. In that voice message, I told you that I was gonna do the CAE again because it was my second time. I didn't that time. I got a lower mark than when I did it the first time. My family and friends encouraged me to do it again, and I tried it again in June, and finally I passed it. I had 184, so I even had 4 extra points. So just to tell all our listeners that are trying to pass some exam that it is possible, and never, never, never give up. See you next time. Bye.
Well, congratulations, Patricia. That's wonderful news. Congratulations on passing the exam.
Well done, Patricia. Yes, you're quite right not to give up. There's an old proverb in English which says, if at first you don't succeed,
try again. And you did. And you got there. So well done. And it's not uncommon, I don't know if you agree, Reza, to do an exam and then get lower marks the second time. Maybe you find the listening more difficult. Maybe there's some grammar points that you're not sure of the second time, but it was a little easier the first time. So even though you're continually studying, it maybe you find one exam more difficult than one you did previously.
Yes, it's happened to quite a few students of mine. Yeah, incredible but true. Sometimes I think the second time you're even more nervous than the first time because you think, oh, what? I've already failed before. I've got to pass. And the nerves probably don't help either.
That's true. So take a leaf out of Patricia's book. That means do what she did. Don't give up. Keep studying. Keep trying. And I'm sure you will pass the exam in the end. So let's speak about movie quotes now, and many thanks to our friend Angelica Bello, who originally gave us the idea for this episode a long time ago now, but thank you, Angelica. We hope everything's going well for you in the UK.
Yes, thanks, Angelica. Oh, by the way, Angelica, let us know if you have a favourite quote, because it was your idea after all.
The first one we're looking at is a classic film, and it's one of my favourites. It's Casablanca, which dates back to 1942. It's a black and white film, and it's given rise to quite a few famous quotes. What does that expression given rise to mean?
To give rise to something means that as a consequence of this thing happening, other things have appeared. For example, let's say the mass demonstrations have given rise to calls for the government to resign. So the first there were the demonstrations, and as a result of that, other things happened. So this film was very successful, so it's given rise to many quotes as a result of its success.
You may be familiar with the quote, "Here's looking at you, kid," in which Humphrey Bogart says to...
Ingrid Bergman.
Thank you. Ingrid Bergman, who is in love with and gazing into her eyes, looking lovingly at her and says, "Well, here's looking at you, kid."
And sometimes people do that now just when they raise their glass, don't they? And I don't know if they did it much before that film. They're probably thinking about Casablanca. That's where they get the inspiration from, isn't it?
And also in the film, Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart go to Paris and have this wonderful romantic time in Paris before the Nazis enter Paris and take control, invade France and Paris. And through the film, they say, "Oh, we'll always have Paris. We'll always have Paris. We'll always have that wonderful memory. It doesn't matter how bad things get."
Craig, here's an idea, although we're probably going to regret this. What about we try a dialogue from the film?
Let's do it. Let's set the scene first. Let the listeners know what's happening. To set the scene means to put you in the picture so that you know what's happening in the film. So Rick, Humphrey Bogart, Rick, the character Rick, owns a bar in Casablanca. And it's the kind of bar where there's lots of shady characters that go to meet because they're fighting against Nazi Germany. A shady character is a suspicious, quiet person who maybe has sinister motives. And Ilsa, played by Ingrid Bergman, she has a husband who is fighting against the Nazis in France, is it?
I think so. Is he Hungarian?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's Hungarian. Is it
He's-
Laszlo? Is it Laszlo?
Victor Laszlo.
Victor Laszlo.
He's a freedom fighter, fighting for freedom against Nazi Germany. And she's married to him, but she falls in love with Rick.
So in our version, in quotation speech marks entre comillas, our version, of course, as you would expect, Craig is the dashing Rick Blaine. Humphrey Bogart.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Dashing, he's irresistibly charming.
I was hoping to be Ilsa.
Oh no, I want to be Ilsa. I am clearly the attractive yet
true.
mysterious woman in this scene. No,
That's true. Let's try it. So I'm Rick and you're Ilsa. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
what about us?
We'll always have Paris. We didn't have it before. We'd lost it until you came to Casablanca. We got it back last night.
When I said I would never leave you,
And you never will. But I've got a job to do. Where I'm going, you can't follow. What I've got to do, you can't be any part of it. Ilsa, I'm not good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday, you'll understand that. Here's looking at you, kid.
wow, did you feel the chemistry there between Rick and Ilsa, Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman? What chemistry!
We should explain one or two things in that dialogue. First of all, Rick said, but I've got a job to do too. What do you think he means by that in the context of the film? Is it because he's helping the resistance?
He is, yeah. He's secretly helping the resistance. You don't know that till later. You think he's just a very cynical club owner who's making money from shady people. But no, he is actually sympathetic towards the resistance.
So his heart is in the right place. He's doing good things. And the expression, which always makes me laugh, problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans. una colina de alubias.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah. I've only ever heard that in that film.
Me too. I've never heard that, but it's a wonderful expression. I love it.
It makes sense in a way, doesn't it? You
Yeah.
understand it.
If you think about life and really life and death and how stupid little problems are, and we make these problems so big, when you think about it, they just don't amount to a hill of beans in this world.
Before we leave Casablanca, there are actually more famous quotes that we want to tell you about. Obviously, we've talked about the leading man and the leading lady. That's the main stars, the male and the female, leading man and lady, Bogart and Bergman. But there's also another character who's quite important in this film, played by Claude Rains. And I can't remember right now what his character's called.
I think he's the chief of police for Casablanca, so he's in charge of the police, and he gambles in Rick's casino and goes with some of the girls that work in the casino, and Rick turns a blind eye. If you turn a blind eye to something, you know it's happening, but you ignore it. You don't pay attention. This chief of police...
Oh, I've just remembered his
Makes
name's
money.
Louis, isn't it?
Louis. His name's Louis, and he earns a lot of money illegally by gambling because Rick lets him win. And one scene in the film, suddenly Rick asks Louis, the chief of police, to close the casino. So he looks around with all the money in his hands and he said, "This casino is closed. I'm shocked to find there's gambling happening here." And he's been winning at the gambling table for months and months.
So he's a very cynical character. I said that word earlier, cynical. You think that Rick is cynical, but he's not. But Louis genuinely is cynical. He's in it for the money. But he's not a really bad guy. He's not so bad.
He's very corrupt.
He's corrupt. He cooperates with the Nazis, but he also gives Rick an easy time. He lets him make money as long as he doesn't cause any trouble.
And the final line in the film, when Ilsa Bergman gets on the plane and she flies away to be with her husband, and Rick had to pull a gun on Louis to let the plane take off. As they walk away, they finally agree that they did the right thing, that the world is okay, that they're good people. So what does Humphrey Bogart say to Louis?
Humphrey Bogart says, "Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship."
And that phrase is used quite often. That quote from that film is used sometimes in everyday conversation. And there's one final quote from the film that we'd like to mention, and that's "Play it again, Sam." Although they don't actually say "play it again, Sam." That's very often misquoted. It's quoted badly.
It's weird that. So an incorrect version of the quote is the version that's become most famous.
Yeah, which
But
sometimes happens.
It's never said.
So let's read the very, very short part. Let's set the scene. So Ilsa, Ingrid Bergman, is in Rick's bar, and there's a piano player in the bar called Sam. And Sam is sitting at the piano. And she gets very reminiscent of her time with Rick, of being in Paris, and she wants to be reminded of the wonderful romance. So it's Ilsa talking to Sam, and then suddenly at the end, Rick arrives. So who's Ilsa, who's Sam?
Oh, well, we'll stay in our roles because I think
Okay, so I'm Sam?
We're naturals.
Okay.
So I've got to continue as Ilsa. So Sam.
Okay.
So Craig is now the piano player, and he's going to speak just like Sam, I'm sure. Yes, miss. Yes, miss. No, he doesn't exactly do that.
You probably do a better Sam than I would. Okay. Before we read the dialogue, one or two pieces of vocabulary that I've taken from it for old times' sake. Now, we say this at New Year when we sing the New Year's song, and we're getting very close to the end of the year and the New Year. So what does for old times' sake mean?
It means that you do something to make you remember good old times, to remind you of good old times. So as we explained earlier, Rick and Ilsa were lovers in Paris and they had a lovely time, and they first heard the tune there in Paris. So Ilsa now, years later, wants Sam, the piano player, to play it for old time's sake, so she can remember those good old days.
And of course, she asks Sam, the piano player, to play it, but he doesn't want to play it. And he says, I'm a little rusty on it. A little rusty. Rusty's oxidado. So this may happen to you with your English. If you don't practice, if you don't speak, if you don't study for a while, your English gets rusty. So you could say, well, my English is a little rusty.
And Sam continues to pretend, and it's not real, but he pretends that he can't remember it. And so Ilse says, I'll hum it for you. So to remind him, she hums. And to hum is like singing, but with your mouth closed.
And finally, there's a line in the song that Sam sings, and it's when two lovers woo. W-O-O. And we don't hear that word very often these days. I think it's a little bit old-fashioned. To woo is to interact with someone romantically. So maybe you speak romantic language and you make eye contact and you look into the person's eyes because you want them to like you. So you're wooing them.
Yes, it was often said, I don't know if it's sexist or perhaps it's just quaint and old-fashioned. Quaint means like sweet in a silly way. But if you can imagine, some of you, pre-internet days, above all pre-dating site and pre-Tinder days, they said you had to woo a lady.
Yes, buy her flowers.
Had to be wooed. A lady liked to be wooed. In other words, you took time to romantically build a relationship with her. It wasn't just a quick swipe of the screen, get her phone number and call her up. No. That is not wooing. Flowers, chocolates, quite a few rejections before she says, yes, okay, I will go out for you with dinner, that type of thing. Time, patience, presence.
So it's kind of like ligar, but in a more old-fashioned, romantic, old-school way. So let's do the dialogue. You're Ilsa, I'm Sam. Who's going to be Rick? We need a third person.
Well, you were Rick before. You're going to have to do the two accents, Craig.
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah. Play it once, Sam, for old time's sake.
I don't know what you mean, Miss Ilsa.
Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by.
Oh, I can't remember it, Miss Ilsa. I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you. Sing it, Sam.
You must remember this. A kiss is but a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say, I love you. On that you can rely. No matter what the future brings.
Sam, I thought I told you never to play. Rick didn't finish his sentence because that's when he sees her, isn't it? And then he's speechless.
Yeah. By the way, we do have these dialogues on the webpage in the show notes. Go to inglespodcast.com/289 and you can read along as Reza and I do our splendid acting and singing.
I don't know about you listeners, but has Craig, has Sam, I forgot it was actually Craig. He was so raised as Sam.
So
Craig
realistic.
Was singing that. It brought a tear to my eye. It did bring a tear to my eye.
It was that bad that you started crying.
Yeah, no, I was moved. I was moved.
You were moved to another room. Anyway, if you are still listening to us, let's continue with some more of our favourite quotes. Now, the wonderful Clint Eastwood made a film in 1983 called Sudden Impact. Reza, what was the classic line that's often quoted from that Clint Eastwood film?
Go ahead. Make my day.
Very good. Make my day. Go ahead. Adelante. Go ahead. Make my day. A classic quote.
Do you know that scene? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, famous.
Yeah.
So he's got a gun pointed at a criminal. He's like a good cop, and he's like saying, "Yeah, go on, do something because I want the chance to shoot you. I'd love to shoot you dead. So make my day. It'd be really nice for me to shoot you."
Make me happy. Make my day. By the way, we do have short clips from YouTube in the show notes also. So if you'd like to see the actors acting these quotes out, go to the webpage and you can watch the YouTube clips that we've collected for you. Go ahead, Reza. Make my day.
Craig, you must know the film Some Like It Hot.
Yep, 1959, a classic starring Jack Lemmon, Marilyn Monroe, and Tony Curtis.
Maybe the title hasn't helped Spanish people because the Spanish title was given Con falda y a lo loco. Con faldas y a lo loco. I don't know why, because in English it's Some Like It Hot. A algunos les gusta picante. You could
Or caliente.
Or caliente. But it was changed, as titles often are.
They are, which is confusing sometimes.
They're not just translated, they're like completely changed.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway, the scene I love, and many people around the world, is the very end of the film. Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon have been pretending to be women. And a rich millionaire with a yacht and everything, all the cliches, falls for Jack Lemmon as a woman.
What does
thinking
to
it's a
fall
woman.
for mean?
He falls in love with her. He is charmed by her, although it's really a him. And this is very embarrassing. They're not quite sure what to do. And so Jack Lemmon says many things like, oh, no, it wouldn't work because you're rich, I'm poor, or because you come from a different background, and lots of different things. You've got to watch the scene. But finally, he takes off his wig, the peluca, gets rid of a bit of makeup, says, look, I'm a man, basically. And the rich millionaire says, whoa, nobody's perfect. It's like, even though he's just discovered that this person that he thought is a woman is a man, he still doesn't care.
And he still loves her or him. And nobody's perfect.
Which is brilliant. The understatement of it. Understatement is when you say something in the weakest way possible. Like, it's no big deal that you just discovered someone's the opposite sex that you thought they were and you want to marry them. Obviously, that is a very big deal to say, nobody's perfect. It's such an understatement.
Also, another classic film from 1977, Star Wars. The classic quote from that film, which has been repeated many, many times during the franchise, during the series of the Star Wars films, is "May the Force be with you." And various characters have said it in the Star Wars films. May the Force be with you. May the Force be with you, Luke.
Going back a long time, can you believe 1977 was the first Star Wars? And they're still making those films, and they're still saying that line.
And they're still making a lot of money.
Yeah. May the money go with you. Should be that.
So George Lucas directed Star Wars, at least the original Star Wars films, and Steven Spielberg directed a film called E.T., the Extraterrestrial, in 1982. What do we remember from that film, Reza?
Well, there are many scenes visually that people will remember, but the one quote that sticks in everybody's mind, the one line is, E.T. phone home.
Although these days, instead of saying phone home, it'd probably be E.T. text me or E.T. send me a WhatsApp.
So you probably know the scene. E.T. has special powers, and I think his finger lights up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He has like something which looks like electricity in his finger, which of course no one had ever seen before. But even though he's got all these special powers, like all of us, he misses home. Who knows? Maybe his mummy was waiting for him, and all he wants to do is phone home.
Phone home. My mum loved that film. She watched that thousands of times. So what's the next one? Mae West.
Mae West, that's a name that won't be familiar as much as the other names we've said, particularly to younger listeners. But in her day, whenever she was popular, she was considered a sex symbol. A sex symbol.
As Marilyn Monroe was too.
Marilyn Monroe. And there's a film which isn't such a popular film, actually.
I haven't seen it.
No, I don't think I have either. But I do know the scene, that's S-C-E-N-E, not S-E-E-N Bisto, but La Scena, S-C-E-N-E, where the character that Mae West plays is flirting. She's being coquettish coqueteando with a man, which was her speciality in all her roles. And she said, "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?" Obviously, in a much more seductive way than me, but it was quite a come on. A come on is when you say something and it's obvious where it's leading.
And with Mae West, if you think that this was made in 1933 at the time when the cinema was very restricted in what they could say and do around sex, a lot of Mae West's persona implied sexual undertones, which means she said words that were not sexual, but in a very sexual way. And that's what I think made her so popular.
Yeah, if you watch the whole scene, I can't remember everything that happens, but we've got the link in the show notes. She first of all says things like, I like a man in uniform. So she flirts with him a lot, and then to say, why don't you come up? Read whatever you like into that come up, but I think it's very suggestive.
And this is also an example of a famous line that's been misquoted and changed over time, because when you hear this movie quote in normal conversation, you probably will hear, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?" Although in the film, as you'll hear in a moment, she actually says, "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?" So just a slight difference, and it's now misquoted. So shall we do the section in the film? Shall we do the bit?
Who do you want to be?
Well, I'll be the lady this time.
Okay.
You do the lady. I'll be the captain. Let's make it easier on me.
Okay, just in a quarter of a second, because I'm a professional, I will put on my irresistibly seductive female voice. Here we go.
Make it sexy.
I always did like a man in uniform. That one fits you grand. Why don't you come up sometime and see me? I'm home every evening.
Yeah, but I'm busy every evening.
Busy? So what are you trying to do, insult me?
Why, no. No, not at all. I'm just busy, that's all.
I heard you, but you ain't kidding me any. I met your kind before. Why don't you come up sometime, huh?
Well,
Don't be afraid, I won't tell. Come up, I'll tell your fortune. You can be had.
Classic. So one or two words from that. Lady Lou, who is Mae West's character, says, "That one fits you grand." There's another word that's faded over time. Fits you grand. So that's an adverb. Maybe we'd say these days it fits you well.
It's alive and well in Belfast.
Really?
Yep.
Would you say we had a grand time?
Very common.
Okay.
What do you think of my new clothes? Oh, they're grand. Or fits you grand is a totally contemporary Belfast thing to say. We've kept it up the word grand.
Interesting. So you use it instead of well.
Yeah. Well or good or positive things. Yeah.
How are you feeling? I'm grand.
Very, very common. It's an extremely common answer to how you feel in
See?
Belfast.
Well,
Yeah.
I've learned something today. So if you're in Belfast, you can use grand. It's very common, very modern. One more thing. I met your kind before, says Lou. What does that mean? I met your kind before.
Well, I think she's left it purposely ambiguous. What is his kind? She doesn't say, but she's suggesting perhaps that, I think he's all talk, but no action. Because, he's happy to flirt with her. But when she says, okay, then, come up, he's like, no, I'm busy. Yeah. I met your kind before. A lot of talk, but you're not doing anything.
I've met people like you before. It's interesting that it's past simple and not present perfect. Maybe I've met your kind before, we'd say these days.
Next, we've got a very different type of film. Back to the 70s, we had Star Wars from 77. This film is 76. Taxi Driver.
Robert De Niro, starring Robert De Niro, of course, one of my favourite actors. And he actually improvised this on the set. The set is where they were shooting, where they were making the film. This was not in the script. He was standing in front of a mirror and he just invented these lines.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Then who the hell else you talking to? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
You talking to me? Huh? You talking to me? Then who the hell else are you talking to? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here. I used that in the Amanchen Inglés basic English course as a way of teaching present continuous and repetition. So it's a great example of using the present continuous for things that are happening at the moment. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me now? Is that what's happening? So at a very basic level, you could use that for present continuous practice. I know we have English teachers listening. Why not use the clip that we've put on the website to teach our students the present continuous?
The next quote we've got for you is really famous, and many of you will know that it's from James Bond. And it was originally used in the film Goldfinger in 1964, but it's been used in probably every single James Bond film since. It's become like a cliche that people love to hear, so they make sure they put it into every film. But as well as that, loads is an informal way of saying loads of people copy it, make fun of it, because, we're not all James Bond, are we? So, if you're clearly not James Bond.
Speak for yourself.
And you say something that James Bond says, it's going to sound funny.
Yeah.
So Craig, who's a big James Bond fan.
I am a James Bond nerd.
Big fan?
Yeah.
I think he should give it a go.
Well, we should both say it. So a martini, shaken, not stirred.
That was good. That was quite. You were quite close to, what's that guy? Daniel Craig, is it?
Well, we've got the same name, so maybe.
Yeah, but
Thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, Daniel Craig, one of the people who's played Bond. I thought your accent was quite similar to his there.
You say it.
Yeah. Who am I going to go for? I couldn't do that.
Say it in a Belfast accent.
There's never been a Belfast.
Not yet.
The cliche is to do it really badly in a comic way, copying Sean Connery, but he does it in quite a seductive way. But he has a very particular accent. He goes shh a bit, doesn't he? In comedy shows and things like that, and they're taking a funny view of it, they might say, a martini, shaken, not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred.
Stirred. Because Sean Connery, probably the most famous of all the Bond actors, had this slight, I don't know whether to call it an impediment or a characteristic of his speech. The sound he made slightly shh.
Yeah. Let's move to The Godfather, another classic from 1972, and it has been repeated in subsequent Godfather films after, to make someone an offer he can't refuse. Now, this was first said by Marlon Brando as Don Vito Corleone in the first Godfather, and Al Pacino repeated it after as his son, Michael Corleone. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. What do you understand by that, Reza? To make someone an offer they can't refuse?
So if you can't refuse the offer, it could have two meanings. It could be because it's so good that you'd be stupid not to accept it because it's a really good offer. But it could also mean you have to accept it because there's no other alternative. So I think they're being purposely ambiguous here by saying it. Yeah, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. He's going to love this offer. But since it's the mafia, if you don't take the offer, they're going to kill you. So
exactly.
You're going to take the offer.
You can't refuse it because if you do refuse it, you will be dead. So it's a nice way of saying I'm going to murder you if you don't do what I say. We've covered quite a few films. We've got one or two more to mention, but very quickly you can go to the website and see the clips if you're interested. Remember, it's inglespodcast.com/289. But one of my favourite quotes comes from Jaws, the original Jaws 1 in 1975, in which Roy Scheider, who's the police chief, says to Robert Shaw, who's the skipper, the boss of the boat, he says, you're going to need a bigger boat. Now, this is exactly when the shark, Jaws, appears for the first time, and Roy Scheider realizes how big the shark is compared to the size of the boat. And he's completely shocked and stunned and says, you're going to need a bigger boat. And this is also very often quoted sometimes when the tools you have for a job are not big enough or good enough or capable enough to do the job. So another example would be you want to save lots of video into a very, very small computer or pen drive, and it doesn't fit. It's not going to go in. So it's, hey, I think we're going to need a bigger boat.
The next one I'm going to read, I have to say I don't know.
You don't know?
So you've
never
guess
seen
it's
Jerry
Craig-
Maguire?
I don't think so.
Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Renee Zellweger. Show Me the Money is where Tom Cruise is an agent, a sports agent, and Cuba Gooding Jr. is a sports star and the only one that's left for Tom Cruise to manage. So Tom Cruise wants to keep him, to be an agent and keep him as his sports person. A wonderful scene is where Cuba Gooding Jr. says to Tom Cruise, just show me the money, which means pay me a lot of money and I'll do it. I'll stay with you. Show me the money. It's a wonderful scene. It's very, very well acted. So I recommend you go and watch that if you don't know that film. Have you seen In the Heat of the Night, 1967?
I've certainly heard the title, but I'm not sure. Remind me, what's the basic plot?
The basic plot is Sidney Poitier is a black forensic detective from the city, and Rod Steiger is a local police chief trying to solve a murder in one of the southern states of America. I think it's in Mississippi.
Yep. You've jogged my memory. Now I remember it.
It's iconic because Sidney Poitier was one of the first really, really successful black actors, and he paved the way for black actors to become successful after him. The expression to pave the way means to make it easier for black actors to be successful in the cinema. And there's a wonderful scene where Rod Steiger calls him the N-word. So a really derogatory, bad word for black people. And he's criticizing him and he's talking down to him and he's insulting him. And he says, what do they call you from where you're from? And he looks at him straight in the eyes with lots of confidence. And he said, they call me Mr. Tibbs. And he really puts Rod Steiger in his place and shows him that he's going to stand up for himself and defend himself. And he's not intimidated by this police chief. Wonderful film.
Yeah, I remember it now. It is a great film. You're right. I didn't remember that scene, but I do remember the film. It is really great. And both of those are two of my favorite actors. I'm a big fan of Rod Steiger as well. I think he's a brilliant actor.
Me too, yeah.
Poitier.
Have you seen The Field of Dreams? Kevin Costner, who is not one of my favorite actors.
I don't know if I have, actually. This is really bad. My film knowledge is pretty patchy. Patchy means not bad in some areas, but pretty bad in other areas. I've got a patchy.
Well, Field of Dreams is about baseball. And I am not a Kevin Costner fan, and I didn't particularly enjoy the film either. But it's basically Kevin Costner wants a famous baseball star to go to his house, and I can't remember why, but he builds this big field, this baseball field, in the hope that this person comes. That's all I remember from the plot. But the quote that's often used in conversation is, if you build it, he will come. So the idea that you have to believe in something, if you make something, then there'll be a result, something will happen. If you build the baseball field, then this famous person will come, which is overused so much these days on the internet because some people think, you make a podcast or you put up a YouTube channel or an internet site and just create it and everybody will visit it. But that's not true. You need to promote it. You need to have good content. So this overused phrase of, just do it and it will be successful, just build it and it will come, is not always true, especially when we're talking about the internet. But it's a very well used quote from that film, which is why I wanted to include it.
So we've talked about some very famous, well-known quotes, but there are other lines from films that maybe aren't famous quotes, but that you really like. I know there's lots of lines from films that aren't famous that I like. I'll give you an example of one from a Western that I really like called The Wild Bunch. Do you know that film?
I don't think I've seen it, but I did go and look at the link you sent me, so I saw the piece of the film that you're speaking about. I saw the quote, yeah.
So it's a Western, cowboys and that type of thing from 1970. And they're really tough guys, the Wild Bunch. They're tough guys, they're hardened. That means accustomed. They're hardened bank robbers, cowboys. They're tough guys. But they're getting a bit old. They're always being chased by the law, and life's a bit difficult, and they're old, and they never get a chance to rest. It's in the context that I really like it, because this very old member of the gang says to another one who's not quite sure what to do because he's always in trouble with the law, and the law has just made him turn in his fellow gang members. He's just helped turn in the other members, but now he's free to do what he wants. So this member says to him, "Ain't like it used to be, but it'll do." And it's a real kind of Western kind of thing. It's a kind of thing you get in a Western film.
What's the implication in that, though? What's the meaning in the context? It ain't like it used to be, but it'll do. Does it mean we're getting older?
We're getting old. It's getting much harder. The law always after us. It's really not a good profession to be in, and it's getting worse. This bank robbing, it was much better years ago when we were younger, but it'll do.
So it'll do, it will do means quedamos contentos con eso, como tal cual.
Not really contentos, like there's nothing else we can do.
You have to accept it. You must accept it.
What else are we going to do? It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
It'll do.
It is what it is.
The line in itself doesn't say much if you just take it out of context, but in the context of the film, it comes at the end after a lot of action and being chased by sheriffs and all the rest of it, and at the end, and the old guy says it, kind of starts cackling afterwards. To cackle is to laugh in a kind of horrible, kind of grotesque way. Exactly. He's really old and maybe missing some teeth and all the rest of it. It's like, and this makes the other one laugh, who, is pretty sad because he's not sure what to do with his life. And then he thinks, yeah, what the hell? Let's carry on. There's nothing else to do.
Well, strangely, my choice for a quote that I think should be more famous than they are is also not very clear out of context of the film. And it's from a film called The Big Lebowski, El Gran Lebowski in Spanish, 1998, with Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and John Turturro. All wonderful, wonderful, wonderful actors, and directed by the famous Coen brothers. And also one of my favourite comedy films. I love this film. And the quote I'd like to tell you about is, "That rug really tied the room together." So a rug is alfombra. And the expression to tie the room together, tie is atar, but it brings the room together. It complements the room. Maybe it matches the furniture. The colours go with the curtains. It's a perfect rug. But the irony of it is that he lived in a shithole. He lived in a really horrible, broken down, old flat, and the rug was really old. So the fact that it's an American film and Americans are not famous for using irony really made me laugh, and I definitely recommend that film if you haven't seen it. But be careful, because it's not family friendly, so don't let your children watch it. There is a lot of swearing, but it's an excellent film.
Yeah, I love it as well. It's one of my favourite films too.
So now it's your turn to practice your English. What are your favourite movie quotes? We'd love to hear them, and we'd prefer a voice message, so just maybe tell us the quotes that you love and send a voice message to speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Reza, if people would prefer to send us an audio file attached to an email, where can they write to?
If you want to write, it's craig@inglespodcast.com or belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you're interested in buying an audio course or another online course, you can find them for sale at store.mansioningles.net. And before we go, we'd like to thank all our patrons. You are welcome to join our Patreon program for $1 per month, and you get instant access to recent transcriptions. Now, many people are part of our Patreon program. Unfortunately, we don't have time to list them all here, but you can see the names on the website at inglespodcast.com. Special thanks to our new Patreon supporters who have joined us this month. Who are they, Reza?
So these are our new Patreon sponsors, not all our sponsors. Ana Cuevas, Assumpta Farran, Alba, Laura Sandoval, Gemma Curto, Damian MCC, Inés Cadenas, Dani Palacios, Rafa B. Aguado, and Ana Esther Luengo Herrero.
Thank you to all of you. What's next week, Reza?
Next week's episode is Colombia.
And if you have not yet sent us your voice messages about Argentina, you still have time. We have not recorded that episode. So if you live in Argentina, if you are from Argentina, we would love for you to tell us what tourists can do in your country and any interesting facts about Argentina. That episode will be coming very soon. Until next week, may the force be with you. It's goodbye from Reza.
And it's goodbye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.
I'm going to come out like Groucho Marx. They're going to say, Groucho Marx.
You know what the problem is? The problem is it's two things to concentrate on, the American accent and the bogey accent.
Of all the podcasts, all the pod players and all the internet, she listens to my... No.
Try again.
No, we'll go with yours. Let's go with yours. I can't do it.
Okay. Sam, I thought I'd tether. Can't you be Sam? Because it will make more sense if you break in.
Okay.
I'll say no matter what the future brings again.
Why did you come up and... Oops.
Yeah, you see, a victim of
I wanted to
misquotes.
misquote it.
Yeah.
I wanted to put this sometime there. I'll do it again. Play it once, Sam, for old time's sake.
I don't know what you mean, miss.
Play it.
Sorry, my question.
I don't know what you're saying, Miss. Oh, mama.
I forgot.
Mama.
Miss Ilsa.